My name is Manny. I'm a student at TCAT, and tonight I'm going to show you how to recover refrigerant from a unit. First thing you want to do is gather up all your tools. You're going to need a manifold gauge set, extra hose, a bucket of ice water, a recovery jug, gray body, yellow top, refrigerant scales, a recovery machine, a extension cord with a GFI outlet on it, and a jug of refrigerant that has been sitting at the same temperature for 24 hours. After you gather up all your tools, the next thing you want to do is gather your information, and we'll do that over here on the data plate. The data plate shows us what type of refrigerant the unit has and how much it holds in it. This one says it holds 5.6 pounds of R22. So the next thing we're going to do is check and make sure our gauges are compatible with R22. And they are. We also want to make sure that our recovery jug is compatible with R22, and it is. And we want to make sure our recovery machine is compatible with R22, and it is. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is go over our gauges. We want to check the hose ends. Check the Schrader depressors and the O-rings, make sure they're clean, free of contaminants. You want to check every single one of them. Those are good. The next thing you want to do is check your hoses. Make sure they don't have any nicks, cuts, abrasions, or any dry rot or crackling sounds when you squeeze them. If they turn white when you squeeze them, it's an indication they're dry rotted. You want to check each and every hose. Once that's complete, you want to make sure your manifold valves are closed all the way, and you want to make sure your manual shutoffs on your hoses are all the way open. Once you've gone through and checked all of that, you want to check the calibration of your gauges, and to do that, you hook each gauge up to the jug of refrigerant that has been at the same temperature for at least 24 hours. This one is right on the money, 71 degrees. Now it's time to look up the compound gauge. This one's just above where we want it to be, so in order to calibrate it, you want to take the little dude out of this little hole. And you want to take a small screwdriver and turn the screw until you're calibrated. Right there's the sweet spot. Okay, once that's done, the gauges are all good. Now we can proceed to hooking up to the unit. And since the unit is off, we want to hook our high side up first. That way it's the least amount of pressure on that line, and it minimalizes the risk of pollutants hitting the ozone. I've never used these gauges before, so what I'm going to do is a blow test to make sure I got my purge point where it needs to be. That's it. Next, what I'm going to do is hook up to the high side at the same time. As soon as air starts to come out of this, I'm going to tighten that up, and that's called a purge. Success. Now that our high side's hooked up, the next thing we want to do is turn the unit on. We're we're turning the unit on so that it can, so that the low side can reach its lowest point in pressure and also help reduce the pollutants hitting the ozone. We're going to give the unit a couple minutes to run, and while we do, it's a good time to go ahead and hook up the rest of our materials. You want to take your transfer hose. And you want to hook it up to the suction or end port of the recovery machine. You want to take your extra hose and you want to hook one side of it up to the out or discharge port of the recovery machine. And you want to hook the other end loosely to the recovery jug so that you may purge later. At this point, I realize I have forgotten a step. That step is to weigh the recovery jug. To weigh your recovery jug, you first want to get the tare weight on the side of it. Once you have that, turn your scales on. Place the jug on the scales. The scales are showing us that there is a little bit of refrigeration or refrigerant in the recovery jug. Okay, now that that's over with, you go ahead and place the recovery jug into the bucket of ice water. And we can begin where I left off. I was hooking the extra hose up to the discharge port of the recovery machine. And I was hooking the other side loosely to the recovery jug so that we can purge. Now that that is said and done, the unit has ran long enough for me to hook up the low side. Once again, I'll be doing a blow test to make sure I get the right purge. Now what I'm going to do is hook this up to the suction line, the low side of the system. Another successful purge. Now that everything has been hooked up, we can begin the recovery process. And to begin the recovery process, you first want to make sure your recovery machine is dialed in where it should be. For starters, we want to turn it to liquid. And we want to turn the machine on. Turn it on. Let us not forget the most important step. Turn the unit off. Very important. Now with the recovery machine, we make sure it's in liquid. And we want to go ahead and turn it on. Make sure our manifold's closed. Once the unit is on and set to liquid, go ahead and introduce the liquid into the machine. Now when we do this, remember our fourth hose is not all the way hooked up to the recovery jug, so it will purge. And when this happens, you want to get a 3 Mississippi count or a 3 1,000 count. Here we go. 3 Mississippi. And you tighten that purge, and you open the recovery jug. Once your recovery jug is open, you can open your liquid all the way. Now what we are going to do is wait for the recovery machine to recover all of the liquid out of the unit. Once there's no movement in the sight glass, that indicates there's no liquid in it. And after that, we will turn the recovery machine to vapor, and we will open the vapor side. But we will show you that in another video.